If you saw my turn any Windows laptop into a Linux gaming laptop video, the reason that laptop was turned into a Linux gaming laptop was because of a little problem I was having. The specific problem that I was having was USB ports randomly disconnected external drives. It didn't matter which drive or which USB port, it kept happening over and over and over again. I tried all sorts of remedies, such as reinstalling drivers, eventually reinstalling Windows itself, and I had absolutely zero luck. I got so tired of it, I even bought a new laptop. Immediately, I started having issues with the same thing on that laptop. It drove me insane. I did not have this issue though on macOS or in Linux. So it had to be something that was specific to Windows. I don't know exactly why it was impacting it, but it turns out once I disabled fast boot, the issue just went away. I knew about fast boot as you want to disable it before installing Linux, but that was really it. This led me on quite the adventure, so let me share what I learned. This is B from Take Talk Tech, and today I'm going to tell you all about Windows Fast Boot, or as they call it, Fast Startup. Let's do this thing. I have a favor to ask. If you like this type of video and want to see more content like it, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications. Also, don't forget to give this video a like if you like it. Let me know if you liked, didn't like, or if you have any comments, questions, concerns, or emotional outbursts in the comment section below. And lastly, stick around all the way to the end to get the most out of this video. Let's do this thing. All operating systems have a similar process they follow when booting up. This process typically includes what's known as the power on self-test, which is just a quick test of the core components of a system to ensure functionality, loading the kernel NOS from the OS's drive, initializing devices and services, and loading the user environment, which is how you and I interact with a graphical desktop in a computer system. Now, to understand the Windows fast startup process, it's good to understand the hibernation process. When you click on the Windows Start menu, you have the options to lock, sleep, shut down, and restart, but not hibernate. So you might be thinking that sleep has to be the hibernating option, but that's not actually going to be correct. Sleep is what happens when you close the lid of a laptop or push the power button on many systems that are out there. It puts the system into a sort of standby mode that will keep the state of the memory active in RAM, but puts everything else into a pretty extremely low power mode. I just want to say there are many different levels of sleep, which you may hear referred to as S states, but that's a topic for another video. But I just wanted to go ahead and acknowledge those. When you open up the laptop or turn the system back on, it will restore things basically back to the way that they were prior to you putting the device or system into sleep. Hibernate does something similar, but shuts it down to the lowest power level. This is also known as S4 state, which is an example of one of those states that I just mentioned just a second ago. Now, it will also, instead of keeping the state in RAM, it'll actually write it to what's known as a hyber file, which is going to be the hyberfill.sys file, and then it will restore from that when the system is powered back on. In both sleep and hibernate modes, the user remains logged into the system. Most of the time, things run great, but after many cycles of this sleep, hibernating and turning back on, um, you're going to start to notice some quirky things happening. Is this what Windows Fast Startup is? Not quite, but let's talk about it. But first, let's hear a word from this channel's very first sponsor, KeysFam. I am so excited to tell you about today's sponsor, KeysFam. They specialize in software keys including Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows XP, Office 2019, Office 2021, bundle, and computer tools. They're offering an amazing discount for Take Talk Tech viewers, including 50% off Windows licenses and a whopping 62% off of Microsoft Office products. It's super easy to save. All you got to do is click the link in the description down below. We're going to go and select the product that we want. In this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and select a Windows 10 Pro key. All right, it's going to pop up in another window. And see, we can already see that we're getting it. It's already discounted on their site from what Windows would actually charge you if you were to buy it directly from them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add that to cart. We're going to go ahead and go in here and hit View Cart. We're going to select Apply Discount Code. So not only are you getting a discounted product
based on what Microsoft would normally charge you. But because you're using my special code down in the description below, you're going to get an extra 50% off. So like I said, that's going to take it down to a whopping $966, which is an absolutely amazing discount. And all you got to do again is use that code TOG50 and get the Windows 10 Pro key for just that 966, which is amazing. I snagged one of these for myself for a new Windows install. I did recently, which is so amazing. And I wish I would have found out about Keys Fam earlier because I would have saved tons of money buying Windows 10 keys over the past 6 years. So I'm really grateful for Keys Fam for sponsoring this video. And again, make sure to check out the links down in the description below. Now, back to the video.
I've got a visual here to help us better understand hibernation. So what's going to happen is when we're talking about hibernation on a Windows system, and this is specific to a Windows system, though more or less it's the same regardless of the operating system, is apps and services are going to be notified once the request is made. The drivers are going to be notified. Then what's going to happen is the user and system state is going to be saved to the actual disk of the system, which will be your SSD if you're on a modern computing platform. And then it's going to notify the firmware, and then it's going to go ahead and shut down. There's actually a specific file that is written to, and it's that one that we talked about, the hyber.sys file. That is the actual file where all this information is saved. Now, once the request for to exit hibernation comes on, there's a post that happens, right? So this is also different from sleep. The system memory is decompressed and then restored. It takes it from the SSD or the drive, puts it back into RAM, initializes the device. It's like, all right, everything turn back on, go back to where we were, and then the actual system will prompt you to log on at that point. All right, so Windows Fast Startup was added all the way back with Windows 8.1, which was released back in 2013. So let's go ahead and actually look at that process. And we're going to start with the shutdown. Now, when you actually go to shut down a system on a Windows or initiate a reboot, what's going to happen is the shutdown is going to be requested. The users are going to be logged off the system. It's going to go ahead and flush a lot of the data, but what it's going to do also is it's going to take system data, it's going to be compressed and saved to disk, which we also saw in hibernation, and it's going to go ahead and power it off. And you're kind of looking at it like, a lot of this process is the same, but what really is the biggest difference, as we'll talk about in just a second. And you may already notice it if you're following along with this graphic here. Now, when we go to boot it up, what's going to happen is it's going to go ahead and do a post, just like it did in hibernation. It's going to restore the system memory. It's going to do device initialization and Explorer initialization, which is basically the user interface environment. So now, the fast startup process really starts with the shutdown. The really only major difference between fast startup and hibernation is fast startup, the users are logged off. When fast startup was launched back in 2013, most systems were using hard drives. So those things are freaking slow. And it would take a while to boot. I remember what it was like back in 2013. It was like, you kind of put your laptop down, went and got a drink, and then came back, and usually it was booted by then. Nowadays, most storage is going to be solid state, so things are much, much faster. This is the environment this process really was designed for. This can cause all sorts of problems on a system. Now, if you're dual booting a system and you use a boot manager, it could interfere with this process. Updates for many applications need an actual full shutdown and restart to work properly, which was probably what was happening with my system. And honestly, I kind of think that it was probably something to do with a Windows update. So I find it kind of ironic that a Windows, process designed to, help the user ends up actually hurting the user in this place. You gotta love it. These types of things tend to happen with Microsoft. It can also cause some devices not to be recognized by the system. It can also cause system stability issues. The system when you're using it is constantly reading and writing data to drives, and the lack of true reboots can really kind of cause disruption. Because there's disruptions in consolidation and all that kind of stuff. And I actually I wanted to show you an example of what I'm talking about here, because as I was working on this video, I was actually using that $20 laptop that I used for the 10-year-old $20 challenge kind of video I did a little while ago, and this happened, and I had been opening and closing this thing for a few days, almost a week, honestly. And this is LibreOffice's Impress, which is basically their PowerPoint program, which is, it's funny because now I have a PowerPoint embedded in a PowerPoint, or a image of a PowerPoint embedded in a PowerPoint, kind of an inception moment. But all jokes aside, is what's really happened here is you can see that there is definitely an artifact. We can see here I'm using the same program and that's not here, but all this white stuff, that should not be there. But this is the kind of stuff that it can inflict on a system, and can, so this right here is the perfect illustration of how things can go wrong when you're doing this. This now is something that I turn off on every Windows system that I use, just because I don't want to deal with any problems. So let's go ahead and actually see how we can actually disable the fast startup feature in Windows. So I've got a Windows desktop here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go down to the little magnifying glass here. We're going to go ahead and type in Control Panel right there. There we go. We're going to load that sucker up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come here to System and Security. We want to go down here to Power Options. And then from Power Options, what we're going to want to do is we want to choose what the power buttons do. All right, and it's going to bring us to this screen right here. And you can see this fast startup option is grayed out, but we can still actually continue to disable it. It's just trying to keep the optimal experience for most users, which is understandable, honestly. Most people don't want to mess with this kind of stuff until it causes problems. But that's what this video is for. All right, so what we're going to do is then we're going to go ahead and go up here to change settings that are currently unavailable. There we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go down here, turn on fast startup. I'm sorry, turn off fast startup. We don't want that on. We're going to save changes. There we go. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go ahead and do a reboot. Now, I'm not going to do that in this video just because I've already showed you the actual process for, for disabling it. So, yeah, this is actually, again, this is what solved my problem. And honestly, some of you might already kind of have it in the pit of your stomach, like, oh my gosh, what if this causes problems, slow boot times, and I'm having to go get a drink just to wait for my computer boot. Honestly, if you're on a modern SSD, you're probably not even gonna notice the time difference. I don't, but that's just me. But I can tell you it's not going to be significant. You can also do this in your system's BIOS, but I'm not going to do that in this video. I do want to go ahead and actually upload that at some point in time in the future, but I'll probably be doing that as a short. Now, personally, this is something I wish Microsoft would just straight up do away with. You saw recommended listed when we went to go turn it off, so I doubt it, but we can dream. At least now you know how to disable it, and most of the other relevant information about it. So make sure you check out this other video from my channel. Remember, mistakes make you better, so keep on making them. Thank you so much for watching my video, and have the greatest of days.